Dobrý deň, pozdravujeme vás z facebookovej stránky Deti
Good
nepočujú.
evening, everybody, and we greet you from the Facebook page. Children won't wait. So welcome to the series, to the new series of 5 online debates. And the topic is related to the strategy of our education. Partnership for Education 2030 is joining more than 100 organizations and 500 individuals who would like to share best practices in education in Slovakia. So 5 areas our debates are going to be devoted to were identified in relation to all finances coming to Slovakia from the recovery and resilience plan. And if you would like to invest these finances properly, if we really want the reforms to start and to happen, then a partnership for Education 2030 can be very helpful. The first topic of this week is this Tuesday's live debate, and the topic is curriculum, the content and the method of education. We are using the Latin word curriculum. If you watch our debates, you know what we talk about. We do not want to be theoretical. We want to be very practical and have a look at what is working in Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Iceland, and in the UK. So I'm going to introduce our 6 guests who joined us tonight to discuss on curriculum on our Facebook site, The Children Won't Wait. I welcome my colleague Tomáš Verstek from the Czech Republic. Maybe you don't know that Tomáš was in the background of the TV series in the Czech Republic, and this TV series was very popular, and Tomáš is one of the creators, one of the screenplay writer who created this series called The Protector. And I don't know if you have watched it. Tomáš, welcome and congratulations on this successful TV series. And I hand over to you, Tomáš. Good evening. I just repeat, we are going to talk about curriculum today in various countries, how curriculum look like and what it means for the teachers. So how these regulations allow the teacher to accommodate the curriculum to their students and pupils. Let me introduce the first 3 members of today's debate. I will start with Maria Smarekova from the private secondary grammar school in Bratislava. So could you tell us more about what you do at your school? Well, the first private secondary grammar school established in 1991 was the first private secondary grammar school in the Slovak Republic. And when we established this school, there were 4 teachers experienced from the public education system, and we wanted to make a change. And the priority change was the change of the relationships at the schools. After 30 years, I can say that we really were successful. We managed to improve relationships. We feel very well in the school. And I'm not saying it because I'm a member of the school management, but I can say it because I have a daily contact with the students. Okay, and what about curriculum? Well, as I said, the curriculum was based mostly on the climate and relationships in the school. And during the 30 years, the priorities have been changing. At the moment, the biggest priority of our school is the student, the engaged student, and the teacher who is competent. a teacher who is competent and able to explain even more complicated problems in a clear and understandable way. And on curriculum, well, I think our curriculum is very well designed. And I can say so because our students can enjoy a very pleasant environment. We are quite demanding. We have stipulated very exact rules of assessment, and this is the foundation of our work. So thank you very much, and I would like to welcome the second participants of our debate from Reykjavik, and I would like to ask our guest from Reykjavik to introduce her school and what she is doing at her school.
Hello, my name is Hildur Heimisdóttir, and I'm a teacher in an inclusive school in Reykjavik. So we could say I'm a surviving teacher. I've been teaching for 16 years in a school where we work, where deaf and hard of hearing students are included in all ordinary public school. And we work with the inclusive classroom. We don't even talk about that so much anymore. We try to think of the classroom, the school of diversity. So we emphasize in a school where every student can flourish despite their obstacles. So yes, I'm a teacher, so I have 20 pupils in my class. Some of them are hard of hearing, some of them are deaf. And so I work with interpreter on sign language interpreter on one side, and sometimes with some special educators also in my class, and it is quite interesting. And it's a big school, according to Icelandic measurements. There are around 600 students in this school, and it's based near to downtown in Reykjavik.
Děkuji. Ještě bych měl dotaz.
Thank you very much. I would have a question. You call this school inclusive school, and you say that it's for children who are deaf or who have some limitations of hearing. So how should we understand inclusivity? Does it mean that this school is also attended by so-called normal children? How should we understand this inclusivity in this case?
Yes, there are around 550 students that are not hard of hearing, and only around 15 who are hard of hearing. We are the whole country is quite small, so the group of children with each kind of special needs is never a big group. So for many years, it is around year 2000, most of special education schools are closed, and most of them, like the school for blind or school for deaf, were included into one specific school, so we could kind of be specialists in including these these obstacles with children, or how you would say it, this kind of diversity. So yes, it's a normal public school with all kinds of students, and of course also students speaking more languages than only Icelandic.
Dobře, děkuji moc krát, už tomu rozumíme.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and I would like to introduce the third discussion. Remember, it's Pavel Kremer from Prague, and I would like to ask Pavel Kremer to introduce his school and his project. Good evening. For 23 years, I've been teaching at the alternative schools in the Czech Republic, Ukraine, and Switzerland. And at the moment, it's been the second year where I am class teacher at the public Waldorf school in Prague. Very soon, this school is going to celebrate the 30th anniversary of its establishment. It was established similarly as the school where Maria works, so shortly after revolution. I have also established Institute for the Support of Innovative Education. There are teachers, parents, and pupils from innovative schools. On the web, we see the map of all innovative schools in the Czech Republic and abroad. We are accompanying the school in their transformation. We are helping to establish new innovative schools. We are assisting to the state, private, and church schools. We are assisting them to formulate a vision, the projects, and then we help them to put this vision into everyday life to the level of curriculum, time schedule, etc., and so on. On curriculum, some years ago, I was participating in the preparation of education program for Lyceum, where I was working at that time. Thank you. And I have another question. The people from the Institute, how many schools have they accompanied together? Well, there were around 15 schools altogether. Thank you. And now I hand over to Anton, and I would like to ask him to introduce other members.
Vierku Grohovú, ktorú mnohí poznáte ako predstaviteľku Fóra proaktívnych škôl.
Thank you very much. We also have Ms. Viera Grova, whom you might know as the member of the Proactive Schools Forum Association. You have been focusing on the pilot testing, pilot innovative education under the National Institute for Education of the Slovak Republic. So can you briefly introduce your or the project? And unfortunately, you are muted. I would like to say that I have been focusing on changing the education culture at schools for the best part of my life. I have held the position of the principal at the school or director of the school, and now I've been given a chance to share my knowledge and my experience. And so under the auspices of the National Institute for Education, we visit the schools and try to design the education culture and the systemic changes so that they comply with the needs of the children. And that was my personal credo for a long time. The pilot verification project under the National Institute for Education was established as a reaction to the pandemic situation when for a long time our children were homeschooled, or basically they were told online, and we needed to attend to the situation. And the State Pedagogical Institute or the National Institute for Education started to look at the content at the state school program, study program, so that they were more flexible and so that it can be adjusted to the individual needs of the student. Also, it's very important that the teachers have been given the opportunity to divide the content of education to bigger topics, which gives them more space and more time to focus and accommodate the speed of the children, and to be more flexible and to be able to basically ensure the continuation and continuity of the teaching process and learning process. As Pavel has said, we are entering the era in Slovakia when we are trying to guide the schools who want to do things differently, which want to really accommodate the needs of their students. And this is at the heart of the project that I am currently a part of, and which is the biggest challenge that I currently have in front of me. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about this later. I would also like to introduce and welcome Ms. Andrea Bakoshova, who is joining us from the UK. So can you tell us where you are working currently, and perhaps how does your work relate to adjusting the curriculum and the content of education? Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction and invitation. I have been working as a teacher in the UK since 2010, and I usually work with the Roma community. I currently work at the school where we cater for the students that are permanently not attending the schools because they have some learning difficulties. We are now basically an institution where the students come to take rest from the mainstream school, and we need to, and they should be also looking for the ways how to get back to the mainstream schools. Unfortunately, this transfer is not as easy as many people expect. So very often we have to change the short-term curriculum to the long-term curriculum. This might, however, be an option or an opportunity. The good thing is that we have the curriculum map, where each child has an individual pace that they follow, and even if they transfer to another school, even if it's a mainstream school, they can continue where they finished. It's very important to have an individual approach and coordinate the approaches. And that's because I work with the children that are at the very initial level all the way up to the GCSE level. And they all work in the same classroom. So we need to adjust the curriculum to each and every student so that they don't feel left out, so that they don't feel that they are lagging behind or that they are not making a progress. Talking about the curriculum, it's also very important that besides the traditional subjects or courses, we also added some more alternative ones. For example, sports qualification, oratory lessons, horseback riding, for example, because they need to learn how to communicate, because communication is one of the fields where they are failing when they come back to the mainstream school. And that's why their inclusion is much harder. So we really cater for children with different learning disabilities, but also for the children without the disabilities. So we need to really cater for all of them. Okay, can I have a question? What is the age scale of your students in one classroom? I teach children aged 13 to 16, and I have 10 pupils or students in one group and 4 students in another group. The other group, the smaller one, is more difficult to handle. That's why they need more individual approach. But as for the school, we cater for the children aged 6 to 16. So basically, 16 is the age when they come of age, when they basically leave the compulsory school education, school attendance system. That was a very interesting image that you painted. Thank you for your introduction. And now we also have Ms. Darina Dejaguer, who is also representing the EduAven Europe. Can you introduce your project yourself and perhaps how your project can help to accommodate the education system for the needs of the children? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to introduce the program called ThinkU, which has been prepared in cooperation with the Slovak savings company, Slovenská sporiteľňa, the bank. Our approach to curriculum is different than what is the mainstream approach. I myself have been working for almost 20 years in the National Institute for Education of the Slovak Republic when I worked with the curriculums, trying to shape and design the curriculum. But a couple of years ago, I had the feeling that we exhausted all the opportunities to create the curriculum that would really be useful for the children and feasible to implement in our education system. Some of our surveys actually show that only 4% of the teachers at the state schools are really following the national curriculum, and only 2% at the secondary school. In Slovakia, we have the certification culture, so to speak. We like to certify and test our children in the 5th grade, in the 9th grade, and so on and so on. What is important for educators in Slovakia is the target requirements. This is what is really important for our teachers, not the state study program, but the attainment. And so we stopped to think how to design the system that would also cater for the children who perhaps are not at the full speed, who need more time to flourish, how to teach the children how to learn, how to come to terms with the objectives of their studies. And that's how we came up with the model. We designed a model that's inspired by the Council of Europe and the European language framework, the Common European Language Framework, which specifies 5 competencies, development competencies in 6 different levels. And we have similar systems aiming at the development of knowledge, development of personality, and development of communication competencies. So we focus on the culture of knowledge, but we basically have the inter-subject or intercurricular activities. For example, we have reading, but we also work with reading in mathematics when we have some examples or some tasks that children need to basically come to terms with or need to master. So your primary target groups is the elementary and secondary schools? Yes and no. We have prepared the program, which is also aimed at the teachers, at the school management, and at the society, and at the parents of the children. So basically, we really have a very comprehensive offer that we are coming with. Thank you very much. This sounds very interesting. Okay, so that was all our panelists. In our first block, we've learned that we have international representation. So our panelists are coming and joining from the states where the approach to the curricula is very different. I would now like to perhaps tell more and focus more on the rules for the design of the curricula in different countries and how the curricula can be adopted to cater for the needs of the children. Ms. Dejager already told something about the situation in Slovakia, and I would like to ask Ms. Krohova to perhaps specify what is the situation in Slovakia, whether she agrees with Ms. Dejager or whether she thinks that there's some other things that we need to know about the Slovak curricula. And maybe you can elaborate on your project to tell us how do you accommodate basically this curriculum at the particular schools that you cooperate with under the auspices of the National Institute for Education. Thank you very much for the floor. I can say that Ms. Dejager had told a big truth. Very often our teachers work with course books, and the state study program is the program that's not really being followed or complied with. I think when it comes to proportion, different subjects were prepared by different people with different approach. So they are very often different subjects are not interrelated together. They are more of the individual courses, even under the study program and the national curriculum. And that's why the school curriculum is very important. And our ability to step in is very important. At the moment, we're at the stage when the new state curriculum is being designed, which should basically draw on the experience that we have. Okay, I have a question. We have already heard that the curriculum is different for different subjects and they're not interconnected and interrelated. But then Ms. Dejagar actually said that no one really follows the curriculum. Everyone just follows the course books. So it doesn't really matter that it's not designed well. So, okay, you said that the new curriculum is being prepared, is being drafted. We'll have to wait and see what it looks like. But can you tell us what are the particular activities that you are doing with and implementing with the schools that you are working with? Are you working with the teachers to show them how they can accommodate or how can they adjust the content of education? Or are you completely disregarding the current curriculum, national curriculum? Well, I have to have a very specific approach at each of the schools, but I draw from my personal experience. I usually communicate with the teachers. I prepare workshops for them. I show them how to work with the text, how they can work with the knowledge and with the content of education. And when I see that the teachers are willing and interested in continuing our cooperation and communication, we are then looking for the ways how to engage the children and how to make the curriculum more engaging, more interesting for the children. So we try to win the children over, so to speak. The first step that we usually take is that we use stories. We try to engage the children through the stories so that they start thinking about themselves, start asking questions, what it is that I want to achieve in my life, how do I achieve it? We try to apply a very personalized approach so that when children know what their goals and aims are, we can work with these. We can work with the feedback so that the schools can, the children can monitor themselves. Where I am at, which point I am at, what progress have I made? Because that gives them the feeling of the sense of accomplishment, because this is where I see the failure in our education system, that we always compare everyone against the best one, but we don't accommodate the limitations that the children might have, the individual limitations. We don't let them feel that they've made a progress, even if they are not the best in the class. So I really like to hear what Ms. Bakoshova from the UK said, that when she said about the curriculum maps that they're using. This is perhaps the trend towards which we are going. We are now trying to prepare it, design it, test it in practice, but the situation is very individual and specific in each of the schools. Okay, I understand. So basically, the way I understand it, you are complying with the current curricula, but you only pick and choose from it and you try to adjust it to the needs of the individual schools. Now, before I pass the floor on to Mr. Kremer, I would like to ask Ms. Smrekova to tell us what is your way, what is your approach, how do you handle this at your school? You already mentioned and talked about the relationships, but if you looked at the content of education and what the state wants from you. What is your position on that?
From the beginning, we are used to use our common sense. Pedagogy in Slovakia is based on many notions, and for the same thing or for the same fact, you have so many words how to name them. It depends on the number of authors. So it's really, really a huge mix-up, a goulash. Well, in Slovakia, I don't see this pedagogy as a science, and that's why we decided to follow our own way. The national education program is very weak direction for us, because what we want to provide to children is a little bit different. So we have created several subjects. For example, I learn how to learn subject, or we created another subject. Instead of ethics, we have an experiential ethics, then we do a lot of volunteering, and we base it all on the relationships, and it really brings the results. And I can confirm it because in various competitions organized in Slovakia and abroad, our pupils are very successful. They achieve top places. I want to ask one question. In the Czech Republic, there is an imagination about the Slovak curriculum. We look at your curriculum as a very strict one, and that there are no options to accommodate it. So I see that you walk your own way, right? Because all three of you mentioned it. Well, let me give you example. We have a school inspectors here, and they said we did not have any board with environmental topic hanging on the wall. And I was against this criticism. And I said, well, we have a website, and on our website there are so many projects devoted to environmental education. So they put it into the official records. Of course, I did not agree with it. I went to media, I published it, and 2 weeks the inspectors came back and they asked me to return them their records, their assessment, and then they gave me a different record, a different assessment. Okay, so I see how you solve the problems. Now I would like to ask Pavel Kremer to tell us something about the situation in the Czech Republic. Well, the framework in the Czech Republic is very good. And the Czech Republic has one of the most liberal education system in Europe. And this applies also to framework education programs. So it enables to individualize the teaching, to accommodate it to a specific class. I'm a little bit against individualization for every single child. This is not realistic in the classroom. Let me give you an example, my own example from the school where I teach, and then I will tell you how we cooperate with other schools within the institute. Now I'm teaching in the 5th grade. And there are some main topics that are interdisciplinary topics connecting several subjects. Each topic takes for a month, roughly, and we devoted 2 hours per day. It's a type of project education. In September, I prepared a map of the Czech Republic, 6 by 3 meters, that we spread in the classroom. It was a map of the Czech Republic and the neighboring countries, and the children were walking along the rivers, railways, and routes in the Czech Republic and neighboring countries. And the children were learning how to get from one city to another. They learned the names of the mountains, so we connected geography motion and some imagination. One of other topics that we are teaching right now, it's a connection of informatics. It's a topic of algorithm, Czech language, Czech grammar, and mathematics. So what do we do in the classroom? It's very dynamic, and we learn how to instruct the computer or the robot, how to assign tasks, very precise tasks to the robot, for example, which requires very specific language. And we are learning how the computer can calculate various mathematical tasks. Then we compare robot and human. We are trying to show to the children what the robot is not able to do and what can only be done by humans. Then we also do another project that is focused on the grammar of the Czech language. So our framework and our curriculum allows us to apply these methods. Then it's important that the director of the school approves this method of teaching. In our school, the director gives a huge space to the teachers, and the teachers are able to prepare the timing and structure of their lessons. They are allowed to connect various subjects. This is not a standard procedure at other schools, but there are some enlightened school directors, and I think there are quite many of them. I am also able to be a class teacher at the school where a majority of subjects in the 5th grade is taught by the same person. So I can check what the kids are interested in, or the children can vote about the topics. And this is something I could not do in the public school, or this is not something you could do with various teachers for various subjects. So in the Czech Republic, it's quite frequent at the first level of primary school to use this method, but it's also interesting to teach at the second level of the primary school, where you have various subjects and you have various teachers for various subjects. And it's more difficult to communicate or to merge the subject together, and the teachers do not have time to make such agreement. So it's a little bit different at the second level. So if we accompany the schools in innovations, the most frequent request is a transformation on the second level of primary schools. They are quite helpless on the second level. There are not so many schools who already do the innovations. And usually the schools have a vision that they need some assistance in overcoming the obstacles, in preparing a different structure of curriculum, how to prepare time schedule. So how to do it differently from what is taught at the Faculty of Pedagogy. So it's about democratic participation. It's about communicating it to the parents, because not all parents understand the new innovative way of teaching. So I would say the schools want to do it, but very often they do not know how to do it. Yeah, I see Hidur fighting with her phone. So now you've been listening to the situation in Slovakia, in the Czech Republic. They separated in 1993, but still these schools have very similar tradition. So Hildur, when you were listening to other experience, how the framework is organized here, so could you somehow comment it based on your experience? What is the way in Iceland, and how do you apply all that in your school in Iceland?
Okay, I can try at least. I found it very interesting, and thank you very much for all the information you have been giving. And of what I've been hearing, we are all kind of working in the same direction, the direction of making every student flourish and be able to get information and be educated at its own levels. But what's it's the same here. The textbooks are trying to steer the education more than the curriculum. And that's maybe because we who are teachers today, we come from the school system where where the content of education was even more. The aim of education was the content, not how to learn or to become a better person. And in 2015, there came a new curriculum in Iceland, which I find very interesting and very hard to follow. But the aim of it was based on 5 fundamental pillars of education: literacy, sustainability, democracy, and human rights, equality, health and welfare, and creativity. Only this. And these 5 pillars were supposed to come to color any field of education or everything. But because we are maybe still thinking, like I hear is also a problem in the other countries, that we have to measure education. But how can we measure sustainability? Or how can we measure how the child looks at equality? We can't measure this, but we can teach and we can try to help the children to become better citizens. And what happened in this curriculum, I hope you understand what I'm trying to explain, that what happened is we have the subjects, we have Icelandic, mathematics and everything, and they try to, instead of saying what to know in mathematics, they said what ways in mathematics the children were supposed to be able to use. Does that make sense?
Ano.
So what we are facing is a very positive curriculum, I would say, way too big, with way too many things to think about, and way too many things that we are supposed to help the children to learn. So what happens is that the teacher looks away from the curriculum and at the textbook that is more content-based and easier to follow. But anyhow, a curriculum that is trying to look more on formative assessment and look more on the culture of knowledge. We have that curriculum. And I'm looking forward to the next one that hopefully will be based on this one. And it is very extremely important, what you also have been talking about, that is that the curriculum is followed all the way to the teachers and to the students. Because as we know, in any book that we take, we read it with our own glasses. So if the maker of the curriculum would like us to achieve something special, if the maker of the curriculum has some ideas about teaching and about school system, it's not enough to give us only a book.
Dobře, já jsem si to přeložil tak, že státní
Okay, the way I understood is that the state curriculum in Iceland really focuses quite clearly on civil qualities and competencies. But even in Iceland, it might happen that a teacher could follow the course book because it's just easier. Do I understand it well?
Yes,
And
and that is the aim of the curriculum is more based on the skills that the students are supposed to achieve than on the content of their learning. So all kinds of skills that you can achieve by different kind of subjects and different kinds of ways of I love the idea of walking on the map.
Já se ještě zeptám na jednu věc.
I have one other question. Since your school is relatively big, I believe you have different teachers with different approaches. So I would like to hear whether there is a debate going on among the teachers, whether there are some instructions coming from the management of the school to the teachers, or whether there is a debate among the peers, among the teachers. So what is the situation?
I would not say debate. We are giving quite free hands, and we are in Iceland. We are very focused on that the children are different, and we are also focused on that in our school. So it is, even though we are trying to be together and work in. Try to do things in one school similar. We also acknowledge that each group is very different from the last group. So even though it's something that we were able to do with this group of children, we won't be able to do with some other group of children that come with other ideas and can maybe, and that is positive, that you can find new ways with new group of children. And but we are actually in Reykjavik now. We are working a lot on ideas that come from Britain. And now I'm trying. Shirley Clark has been writing a lot about formative assessment, and then. Which is very interesting, and it is based on to help students identify their strengths and weakness and target areas that need work, and what we then do is that we, for example, we would say to the children today or in this week, we are going to learn multiplication. We are going to learn what is multiplication. The first step of this is to know, and then we would say maybe 5 steps of it, and then we would go very different ways on the way to the final step. And the children would, maybe someone would start at step 4, another would start at step 1. And so yes, and we are trying to do this as the whole school and working together at it, but we do acknowledge that there are very different ways of teaching around the house.
Dobře, děkuji vám mnohokrát.
Thank you very much for this. And now I would like to pass the floor on to Andrea Bakošová. And my question for her is basically, you've already described that the environment and the group of students that you are working with is quite diverse, quite specific. And at your school, the general curriculum is quite heavily adjusted to the needs of the students. So, and even the idea, the initial idea that they are only going to be there for a short time, very often is changing to the long time curriculum because they are not basically transferring back to the mainstream schools. So my question is, how do you adjust the curriculum, and why do these children not have an easy transition to the mainstream schools? The problem with the short-term curriculum was that we never knew what was the time for which the children are coming to our school. And it's quite difficult to find the best possible techniques and methods to the students if you don't know how long they're staying with you. It was quite challenging, quite demanding to adjust the topics and to modify them to meet the children's needs. So it all created the impression that it's just a partial teaching. We didn't know if we could start the new topic or shall we go deeper in this topic. We didn't know how long they're staying. We didn't know how to prepare them uh, to be able to transfer back to the mainstream school. Now, the control system and the controlling or the checks at the schools, at all the schools, not only at ours in the UK, are quite harsh and quite strict. And one of the controls showed that based on the measurability of the attainment of the results of the school outcome, the children did not make such as the progress as they were expected, which was true. It was a fact. And so we decided that regardless of the fact of how long the child was going to stay with us, they were following the long-term curriculum so that it allows them to or facilitates the easier transfer to the mainstream school that were following the long-term curriculum as well. And this took a lot of stress away from us as teachers as well, because it actually took away the burden of thinking of how long the child is staying with us. We knew that we needed to teach the children in a pace that was good for them. And as Pavel has said, very often our teaching was interdisciplinary and project-based teaching. So we basically really connected different subjects. It is easier because at least at the primary school, one teacher teaches everything. The primary school or the junior, the first level of the elementary school ends with 10. I think that this is for the children aged up to 10 years of age, and then we have 10 to 16. I teach children 10 to 16, and I teach all the subjects in my group. There was a time when I was only teaching one subject in different groups, and that was much more difficult. It's easier to have the interdisciplinary project learning if you're teaching all the subjects, because, for example, you may have the topic of the Second World War. We were teaching about the Holocaust, which was the content for history. We could interlink it or link it with geography, because we could talk about all the countries that took part in the Second World War. We always focus on the children, what the children want to learn, what they're interested in. We very often take polls. We incorporated English because we were teaching the children about Anne Frank. So children then wrote their own diary. And because of the curricular map that we are using, as my four speakers mentioned, these maps allow us to choose what we are going to focus on. Obviously, the selection must not be random. It has to be approved by the director of the school, by the head teacher, and you have to be able to justify if the inspection comes. Why you've chosen this, you need to indicate the progress achieved by the person, by the pupil, or by the student, and so on. But the good thing is that we have huge flexibility and freedom as a teacher, what I want to teach and how I want to teach it. And we don't have course books. That's very important. Okay, so let me just sum it up. So this switch from the short-term to long-term curriculum was not caused by basically best results, but worst results, sorry, but because basically it accommodated the needs of the children the best. That is correct. Okay, I would like to close this first block. We know what is the situation with the curricula in different countries. And now I would like to ask Tono, Anton, to start the next block. We were talking about the culture and the environment or the atmosphere in the school might be of key importance. Now, let's start this topic with Ms. Grohova. So, what is the way in which you see or what is the way that can help to overcome the obstacles and the limitations or the narrow mindset, so to speak, of the people around you, of the parents, of the students themselves? So what it is that you would recommend if you were asked to come up with a recommendation or a methodological prop to introduce the changes? So how shall we overcome the obstacles and limitations? The most important person in this process is the director of the school. The director has to have the mindset where the student is at the center, in the center of the focus. As we have already discussed, in Slovakia, very often compliance with the state curriculum is mainly formal. We like to say, yes, we comply with all the things that are specified in the national curriculum, but the things are not really done the best they can be done. And this is very often the topic that we discuss with the directors of the schools, because this is one of the biggest limitations that we encounter. You need to know the children. And if you know who your students are, you need to be able to create the atmosphere where they can take part in the process, where they can be engaged in the process, where they can specify their own objectives and meet them. And I also usually say that the school has to have a comprehensive approach to the designing of their curriculum. So it's not only what they want to teach, but how they want to teach it. What should be the objective that they're aiming for? And so we should perhaps not talk of the individual approach. We should rather talk of the personalized approach, because if we want to measure the progress of a child, we need to teach the child how to assess their progress themselves. We need to teach the children how to see where they have gone to or where they have gotten to and how they've gotten there. And this is very often the discussion that we have with the directors of the schools who have this mindset. I'm very happy to say that we do have directors like this, and we need to form a group of leaders who feel that they want to do things differently, and they act as or serve as icebreakers, so to speak. But it has to be a very comprehensive approach. I don't see legislation as such a big problem, because if you read through the School Act, there is the School Act stipulates that you need to know the needs of the children and you need to be able to accommodate them and comply with them. But it's almost sometimes as if we had the functional blindness in some of the teachers or directors, because they don't see or don't want to see that we need to know the background of the children. We need to know their social background, the social environment that they're coming from, what they are going through at the school. And very often it seems to be sidetracked in our perception. In the past, when we used to say that children were afraid of being beaten at the school, now they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of failing at the school. And when we talked about the curriculum, we really even tested it at the senior level of the elementary school. We defined what was the role of the child of a child who, say, in the 7th grade was to be an adventurer. We defined what were the key competencies The children were playing with the terms. They were preparing and looking at the map and preparing the map. For example, when we had the topic of the environment, and even teachers were looking in the content of the education, what to choose and what to pick so that they engaged the children, so that they managed to somehow catch the attention of the children. And children basically, when they had a first-hand experience of how a human being had to struggle to make means for survival in in the past, or in the forest, in the rainforest, that was very, very immersive. And we could also interlink it with other subjects such as mathematics. How much is a foot? How much is I don't know, different distance measures and so on. So we do feel, to put it shortly, we do feel that the uh, culture needs to change. Very often, our secondary school students say that they want to study abroad because they don't see a change happening in our country, and this is what we need to change. We need to make our students and our pupils partners. We need to treat them as partners. We need to show them that the curriculum that we are offering is interesting, is engaging, that they can be a part of it. And I know that this is also the approach of the parents. Parents usually select the schools that employ this program, or such program, such immersive program. So I think very often what is the biggest obstacle is that very often projects are designed at the green table and not by the people from the field, not by the people who have the first-hand experience with how the things are being implemented in real life. And so, long story short, we need the managers, we need the principals, we need the teacher who are the leaders, and then they can actually create the critical mass to start the snowballing effect.
I hope we should have more teachers. Now, question for Darina de Jager. You already mentioned something about your project about financial literacy. So I assume that the schools to whom you will offer this financial program think you are interested. But in real life, how is it with overcoming the absence of trust? Do the schools really see the benefits of your project, or are they hesitating to accept it because they are so much bound with the state system? We have heard interesting view from Slovakia, from Czech Republic, who see the Slovak curriculum as very strict. So what's your experience? Maybe the schools would accept your project, but maybe they do not see the practical utilization, or they don't see the space in the already existing full curriculum. Does it happen? Well, it doesn't happen with our curriculum. The opposite is true. We have many schools who are interested to join this program. The pilot verification, during 8 days, there were 200 schools interested, and we were only to accept 25 schools into pilot verification. So can you imagine the demanding selection of the schools to participate in the pilot? And now when we finished the pilot, we again offered to the schools, and there were 300 schools. And now we were able to select 60 schools. And from the new school year, it will be 85 schools. So I do not have experience of schools not wanting to join it. I think we have democratic curriculum, as democratic as in the Czech Republic. It's not a problem that our curriculum is not open. Our curriculum enables the school certain freedom. There is a different problem of our curriculum. Our schools do not know how to work with curriculum. They do not see the sense, the meaning of this curriculum. So during our financial education, we tried to tell them, when you are able to work with curriculum, it's going to make your work much easier. So we wanted to prepare some training program for the teachers, and we wanted the teachers to make to think about curriculum, why these things are in curriculum, how they can help to teachers. Our teachers do not have time to think why they teach children what they teach them. I know from the teachers that, yeah, I am teaching it because it will be part of the test. Or, yeah, I'm teaching it because they will be doing tests and they have to know it. So is this the objective of education? Well, something is wrong. On financial education, we were lucky. It's the area where we have huge support from the state. We have a special coordination group for curriculum in financial education. It's the only education with this huge support. The schools have a coordinator of financial education, so the state really understands this area is very important. We have huge assistance from the third sector, a lot of high quality programs, but as Mrs. Hilder says, we see why it doesn't work. We have invested a lot of money during 20 years. The inspectors are watching the progress of students, but it does not work. The pupils are weak. Why are they weak? Well, no, education is projected as a project of the school. Unless we educate kids as a project of the school, where the director is motivating and managing the teacher and facilitating, well, then the teacher is isolated. He maybe does some projects during 1 or 2 years. Uh, mm, the kids get some certificate and that's it. But this effect is not sustainable and it is only short term. So we created curriculum that teachers can understand. They can think about it, both teachers and school directors and financial coordinators. So we show them how they could cooperate in financial education. We show them they do not have to increase the content of education. They can use the context of financial education in the existing educational content. For example, we talk about inflation. It's an important topic, but the pupils don't understand quite well what inflation is. It's abstract. So manipulation with abstract problems is important. You can teach it at mathematics or you can teach it in language, Slovak language lesson or an English lesson or mathematics lesson. For example, we have central bank, but the pupils do not understand the role of European Central Bank. Then for teachers, we have prepared some worksheets that enable them to think about it, in perspective of language, civic awareness, etc. So the teachers have to think about what they are going to teach, and we are helping them. We are doing diagnostics of pupils at the beginning, then we follow their progress in reading, abstracting, argumenting, observation skills, decision making in financial issues. So we are watching their progress. We did it 3 times during 1 year, and the teachers knew exactly what the progress of pupils was. There was some limit. We had a lot of distance learning, and our program is not accommodated to it. Then we had some control classes, and it's been shown that our pupils really had a good progress despite the pandemics. They had very good progress in reading, system thinking. The pupils from pilot classes were usually one higher level than the children in the control classes. So we were very happy that the pupils who had problems with classical educations, they were Roma pupils, pupils with mental disorders, pupils with different languages, or students from secondary vocational schools who normally do not teach financial education. And it happened despite of pandemics, despite poor approach of Roma pupils to distance learning, but still this project was very successful in the pilot classrooms. And another thing that the pupils really found it interesting. They found the tests interesting and entertaining. They liked to take these diagnostic tests. It was really unbelievable for us. The pupils love to work with portfolio, like why should they get education in finances? What does it mean to be financially educated? So it's a question of the auto-evaluation. The teacher is working with it during the lesson, and whatever they do as a team or individuals are filed into portfolio. And then the parents can see the portfolio, they can see what the kids were doing in the classroom. And then a last thing, many teachers said that we saved their distance learning because they got all tools, worksheets, assessments, feedbacks. So they were very well prepared as teachers, and they really appreciate this preparation. They appreciate it was systematic, it had clear objectives, and they appreciated availability of all tools and all methodological support. Well, congratulations on your successful project. Mrs. Smrekova had to go because of other business, but I would like to ask Mr. Kremer. Mrs. Smrekova is supporting the principle that each subject should have some necessary sufficient knowledge for all, and if somebody is especially interested in that subject, so this pupil can go further and develop further in this subject. From your experience, what were the problems that you encountered? We mentioned that there is a big freedom in curriculum in the Czech Republic, but it happens sometimes that was there any consensus, like what is the basic knowledge in the subject, the necessary knowledge, and what is like extra? Well, it's quite a complicated question. On the first level of primary school, we have found the consensus, and it's meaningful. It's also related to the pedagogic faculties because these faculties for primary, for first level of primary educations are working well. There is a problem on the second level of primary schools. The framework education program is quite broad, and there are not so many detailed issues, and there is a problem with the further implementations because we have graduates from pedagogic faculties coming to the schools, and the faculties preparing the future teachers put a lot of emphasis on a specific subject that the undergraduates are studying, like geography, history, etc., and so on. So these subjects do not exist in the framework education program. So if you go back to the university, so they are like lagging 15 years behind the framework education program. And as it was mentioned by Andrea, it's really essential that the teachers on the second level can teach several subjects. This would allow them to know the children better, and this would allow the teacher to connect the interdisciplinary subjects? Well, in the Czech Republic, there is an obstacle. The future teachers are educated with very narrow specializations. And this problem has been existing for many years. It's about people who decide about branches of study at the universities. They are people who somehow protect or who somehow are against the changes. So we are kind of stuck here. There is a different situation on the first level of primary education. Here, we were successful, and the reality is much better. Now, I have a question for Hildur. In Slovakia, when we talk about inclusion, well, we perceive it that the society as a whole is not very much set up or prone to differences, to different children, to the variety, to the various needs, specific needs of children. What was the key obstacle in Iceland that needed to be overcome in Iceland? And how was this culture of the school system created? And did you have support from the majority society if you wanted to diversify your schools and include these children with the special needs?
Yes, we had support from society because when the whole nation is only around 400,000 people, we were even fewer back then, around maybe 300,000, you know someone. So when you're talking about having children with learning difficulties in the public school, you're talking about your nephew. You're talking about your neighbor, you're talking about someone you know. So that makes it easier to get the society to understand that every child wants to go to school with the children in the neighborhood. And also with because the country is quite big, despite so few people living in it. So if we wanted to have special schools for children that have some difficulties or some kind of handicap, then maybe the families had to move. So in many ways, it was positive for the society to say every school is for every child. What I would, and I'm sure that we have better schools now when we have and better and more positive society when all the children are going together in the schools in their neighborhood. But what may be, but it's not, what happened in a way was that it was just decided now everyone should go together in the same school. I'm sad to say that costs money. It's expensive, and we need people that are specialized, have special education, that are inside every school, or some very small schools could maybe be together. We need people that can, development therapists, psychologists. We need all the special knowledge inside the schools, and we need time to educate the teachers. We need money to be able to educate the teachers. So it's not something that is only, we can't make changes in our minds otherwise than also be ready that these changes could cost, and that these changes will take time. They are time consuming and they are money consuming. I found it interesting when it was said the curriculum, we made curriculum that teachers understand. Is that because is the majority of curriculums in a language or so far away from the teachers that are teaching that they don't understand it? That's very interesting to think about. And what, sorry, I go from one thing to another. Other thing that maybe was an obstacle is the assessment. When the school says everyone is welcome to the school based on each and everyone's, you come as you are and you just learn from your from the place you are and try to go further. Then we can't have assessments that are for a group. The assessments have to be flexible. We have to be able to assess, to make tests that are not the one test for everyone. And that is what we have done. We have made the assessment in the schools flexible. So the children can make tests for each other. They can make tests for themselves. They look at the goal, where are you going? More than saying now everyone has to know the same thing. Is that clear? I'm thinking in Icelandic and translating in English, and then you get it again.
Áno, rozumeli sme dobre, ďakujeme.
Yes, I think we understood what you wanted to say, and thank you for that. Unfortunately, we only have a very short time left, but allow me a question to the UK, to Andrea Bakosova. Is there some sort of example of, say, a student who had a very successful transfer back to the mainstream school? And if so, what was the key to this success? Yes, we do have many cases when we manage to get the children back to the mainstream school. It's easier for the children under the age of 14. If we're talking of 15, 16 years old, it's quite difficult to give them back to school, to get them back to mainstream school. And you asked what was the key to this success. Let me tell you about a Roma child, because this is the group that I'm working with. We managed to get the child back to the mainstream school, and the system changed. People need to understand that the change is important. Before, you need to imagine that you are a child going back from the group of 4 children to the classroom of 30, where you're a minority, you are not fitting in because you don't know as much as the others, you have a different language, you're using a different language. So within a week, you're back to our school, and it almost feels like coming home for the children. And so we came up with the idea that the child needs a supporting team, the team of the people from our school who would support the child, but also there should be a supporting team from the receiving school who are accommodating the child, who are supporting the child on their way forward, because we can't just push them into the water and let them and leave them on their own to swim, because we need to support them. Some of the 4 speakers said that it's very important to know the children, to know their social background, their social environment. We have children with behavioral difficulties. We have children from minorities, from socially disadvantaged backgrounds, not only the Roma community. But we know the children. As soon as they walk into the door, you know as a teacher, because you know the child, that they might not be having a good day, that something might have happened at home. And you can work with this. We're not trying to push their head under the water saying, oh, you don't know anything, and that's it. We have the other approach. We have the approach when, I have to help you. I want to help you so that you are capable of receiving the information, of processing them. Because if a child comes who is not ready, internally ready to learn, we can't teach them anything. So we need to create the atmosphere and the environment for the children that they are willing and able to learn. And having said that, I want to say that a very close cooperation with the families and with parents is very important. The closer the cooperation with the parents, the better the attainment of the children. I actually call my parents, the parents of my children, on an everyday basis. I used to even have 30 children, and I just thought, how shall I call them? When shall I find time for that? We actually have the time in our working hours that we can use to call the parents, because communicating with the family is very important. It basically it is a door opener for the education, for the process of learning, because the communication is the key. Thank you very much, Ms. Pakoshova. And now we're approaching the final round of our discussion, and I would like to pass the floor on with this to Tomáš. Pavel Kremer talked, when he talked about the Czech system, Czech education system, he said that what he would need from the system would be some sort of change taking place at the level of the teaching departments or teaching faculties. So there was sort of quite a particular request or requirement where he sees the need to change for a change that can lead to the change at the schools. Now, I would like to ask all the panelists to formulate perhaps one requirement or one sentence or one thing that you would like to change in the system to make things better. Obviously, it's not compulsory. If you're happy with everything as it is, that's fine. You don't have to sort of think of something artificially, but perhaps you can also bring up what is the positive thing in the Icelandic system, in the UK system. You might want to formulate it as to be brief, say in 1 or 2 sentences. You can either raise your hand or you can use the hand icon if you want to speak. It seems no one wants anything, but we can start perhaps with Ms. Grova, with Mr. Kremer. It has been said that the director of the school is very important, but they don't have sufficient support, because very often they have to also address things such as repairs, maintenance, structural works at the building, human resources, and all that. So I think that the directors should have their hands freed so that they can focus fully on pedagogy, on working with the teachers, on supporting their teachers. And in the current Czech system, this is not realistic. So I think the director should be actually a double role. So you should have 2 people carrying out the tasks. One would be in charge of basically the overheads and the operation of the school as such. And then there should be a person preparing or providing the care to the teachers and working with the teachers. Ms. Grohova, I think you've actually stolen my idea. I wanted to say that I really see the burden placed at the schools as very high. And I think we need to reconsider the competencies of both the teachers and the directors of the school. Because if we don't do that, there won't be a space for them, or they wouldn't have the capacity to bring on the change. And I don't think we also need to change the legislation up front, but we need to try out things first, and then we can incorporate the things that worked into the legislation. Otherwise, we only have partial solutions that are not really helping the system and that are not helping the professional development of the teachers themselves. It has already been voiced here that the change, the culture of change is not present here because we need to change the mindset that the teacher should not be only focusing on the content, but on the processes that they can employ in order to facilitate the knowledge, in order to lead and guide the children towards learning. We need to focus on the development of the teachers, not only because at the moment it only basically mostly takes we basically leave the development, professional development of teachers at their free time or for their free time. We need to do that, bring that back to the school. And also it needs to be said that very often the changes and things are being designed without communication with before they're actually communicated to the implementers and educators. And then when they are submitted at the National Institute for Education, we have a lot of comments, we have a lot of changes and alterations and modifications, and that's quite challenging and demanding. Thank you very much. I would like to say that in the Czech Republic, many studies have shown that the education of and the professional development of teachers taking place directly in the schools is much more efficient than if they study and develop themselves in the after their actually working hours at home. Mr. Jager, first and foremost, I think that everyone needs to do what they're good at. So, and work within their competencies. So the ministry should give the schools the time, the resources, and the space. And this is not happening in Slovakia. We are now talking of the curricular reform or the reform of the curriculum, but this is not what the schools want. Schools want the time and space to think about the things that might be working. They need resources to implement the things that are effective and efficient. As my four speakers have said, we need to listen to the schools, we need to hear what they have to say, and we need to support them. I think this is of key importance. The Ministry of Education should finally and start to think about how to increase the attractiveness of teaching as a profession, because this is a big problem. Ms. Bakošová? I think that Vierka and Darina basically expressed what I wanted to say. It would be very good if the teachers could focus on their professional development, and if the schools gave them the opportunity to develop professionally. We have actually 2 days a week in the afternoon when we can focus on our personal and professional development. But this only was brought about by the reform. And, you know, there's always room for improvement. There are always new things that we can learn. And even despite the fact that I work in the UK, the funds and resources are very important. It's not only the matter of teaching, but having something to teach with, having materials to teach with. Sometimes we struggle as well, but it is possible to do everything if you're not afraid of change. And it might even be a big change if we join forces, if we share the experience, if the schools cooperate together, then I believe that the road to success is quite clear and well laid out, and we will all get there. We just need to work hard. Thank you very much. And what would Hildur think or expect or want from their system of education?
Yes, thank you. I think I would want to get rid of assessments where we are comparing children to each other and to a group, and maybe to make the teaching job more appealing. Is if what I have heard of this discussion is if the teacher can come to the job able to with its own knowledge and with the help of the colleagues help the children to become better learners and achieve what they would like, then it is not good if the teacher feels like while doing this, there is always someone above waiting to measure if you did all your things or your students are at the same level in one or other thing as the others. So while we are changing the way of thinking in teaching and the way of thinking in curriculum, we also have to change the way of thinking in the PISA assessments and other assessments when we are trying to measure if everyone is at the same level. So I maybe this is what the support I would also like to see here in this country, where we still have some tests 3 or 4 times in children's life, where we check if they are still different from the other children in their group, and then I would like to see more support system around the schools, that would be easier for teachers, because I think we can almost see the future, what will happen to this or that child, and we can see what help this child could need now. And if we could have more possibilities to get that help, it would be lovely. If you could fix that, please.
Dobře. Děkuji vám mnohokrát za...
So thank you so much for all your contributions. And now I'm handing over to Tono, and I would like him to close this session. So, dear colleagues, thank you very much for your debate, for the contributions to our discussion. Maybe I would like to emphasize some basic message. We need to know our children very well. We need to know the environment and invite them to cooperate, allow them to co-create the content of their education. And maybe the most important thing is to make curriculum understandable for the teachers. They should not serve only to academics who created them. And also this idea of interdisciplinary teaching is very interesting. It's not quite usual in our country that the teachers at the second level of primary school should teach more subjects, not to be narrowly specialized. Maybe by teaching more subjects, they would be able to do more interdisciplinary teaching. So I hope you offered a lot. I would like to thank to all who are watching us or who are watching us from the recording. Well, our debate on Facebook will be published in Slovak and in English. So during the live stream, there was a mixture. Maybe it was less comfortable for the listeners. So once again, thank you very much for the participation. And I would like to invite you to the next week's debate on personalized and inclusive education. This is the strategy that Slovakia would like to go for, but there is a long way to go. So thank you very much. Have a nice evening, and I'm looking forward to our future debates. Goodbye.